Over the last 18 years, the University of South Florida campus and the university itself have been dramatically transformed. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to have you all out to the campus and see what we're doing out there to promote student success. But I would like to introduce the university a little more. Before I introduce President Genshaft, I would like to share with you a video that gives you a better idea of what is going on at USF. Please. Over the last 18 years, the university has been transformed. It's most significant to note the rise in our student success metrics. We are very proud to note that when President Genshaft took the helm, our six-year graduation rate was about 41%. We just hit 71% with the last cohort. So over the course then of 18 years, our four-year graduation rate probably has grown even more impressively. It was in the mid-20s. We just hit 60% with this cohort. And we are probably even prouder of the fact that along the way, we accomplished what few people thought we could actually do, which is that we have eliminated the achievement gap by race and ethnicity. That is, Black and Hispanic students graduate at rates higher than the university average. And for that, I think we need to applaud as well. While my responsibility is to promote the success of our students, I know that we would not have been able to achieve this without the institutional commitment that Dr. Genshaft has made. We've implemented all the programs that so many universities have done to promote student success, but I think it takes more than that. It takes institutional commitment and determination. And from the start, President Genshaft has believed in our students, has cared about our students, and we're implementing a process now by which we are determined to deliver the right support to the right student at the right time through an extended care team approach to student success, and the results are impressive. So please join me in welcoming the President of the University of South Florida System, Dr. Judy Genshaft.
Well, thank you, Paul. I really, after seeing that video, I'm so passionate about the university, and I get so excited. And then thank you for your kind words, and And I just am thrilled to welcome everyone to our inaugural National Student Success Conference. This is really, really exciting. And I do also want to thank Vice President Paul Dosal and his team, along with our Provost, Ralph Wilcox, and you know, this is more than a team effort. This is a whole university-wide area system effort. So, but it takes all of academic affairs, student affairs, everybody on the campus in putting these accomplishments and making such a difference for all of our students. So thank you all for coming to this phenomenal conference. And also, I want to give our appreciation to the sponsors. And one of our great and very unique sponsors is the Florida Consortium of Metropolitan Research Universities. And it's very rare in any state to have 3 universities within the state get together and form this kind of a consortium. So the University of South Florida, we have over 50,000 students. The University of Central Florida, who has over 65,000, I believe, and and Florida International University, who has over 55,000. Is that right? I think so, 55,000. So all 3 of our metropolitan universities have gotten together, formed this kind of consortium, and are working on various projects that are unique to metropolitan large research universities. And we have colleagues from throughout Florida and from across the country attending this conference, and I want to thank all of you for driving or flying here or however you got here. It really, I hope, will make such a big difference to each of your institutions. And that we know that student success is such a high priority for all of higher education throughout the nation. And retention and completion are frequently discussed in the state legislature and in agencies in Congress, federal agencies, and even around family dinner tables. I can tell you, I just got back from Tallahassee yesterday, which is our capital and where the legislature, student success is always a big topic. And there couldn't be a better time to network and share best practices, because that's what we do. That's what we're all about. We are here to bring new discoveries and share best practices with one another. And at the University of South Florida, where we bring in about $550 million every year in external funding through our research projects and our medical school and all that we do, we've made significant progress, as Paul has just mentioned, in student success. And we're using a very good formula for our institution, and I would think for others as well, predictive analytics. And you'll learn the details of predictive analytics and some of the techniques that we're very happy to share with everybody, because all of us care about our students and want to make a difference in the lives of the families that we serve in the region, as well as the nation and internationally. Being data-driven is who we are at the University of South Florida, and I think throughout Florida, data-driven is critical, because our funding's based on metrics. And I think that more is happening nationally and internationally on all of these metrics and rankings and success stories. So you can find something at every level of our university that makes a difference for student success. And whether it's academic advocates or members of our care team or just concerned staff members, we are a family. We take care of each other, whether we're on duty, off duty, and I'll give you a couple of examples. A member of our information technology staff was arriving for work one morning and noticed that a student was sleeping in the car next to his. And he was, the staff person was fearing that the student was homeless, and he sent a text message to alert key staff that we have to this situation. And within 15 minutes, several people were checking on the student. Well, it turns out that the student was just resting before class. However, if he weren't, we were there to help him. Sometimes our students encounter unfortunate circumstances and turn to us for help, such as a graduating senior whose commencement regalia was destroyed in the fire. We worked with the bookstore, we got it replaced, and we helped him in various other ways as well. It can be even an international student, and at USF we have over 5,000 international students. But this particular individual was facing an unexpected financial challenge through no fault of his or her own. Their country's economy crashed, which dramatically altered the currency exchange rate. And we were able to pull together a variety of resources to help the student complete his degree on time. Or it can be a non-traditional student, one well into his 40s, who encountered a problem with his registration. He worked for a state agency and had an employee tuition waiver. But they had very, very strict guidelines on when he could sign up for classes. So he ended up registering too early for his final semester, so he was dropped and his employee waiver was voided. We allowed him, when it was brought to our attention, to re-enroll and covered his bill for that semester with a donor-funded program. And when a member of our care team called to deliver the good news, he ended up in tears. His entire family was able to watch him graduate at the end of the semester. And I'll just share one, well, I might share two more stories. One other one quick. A student who is enrolled in a rigorous STEM program could not afford to get his books and other required materials because of a delay in the financial aid package that he was receiving. And as you would expect, he was under incredible stress because he couldn't afford to fall behind. So we worked with the bookstore, his academic department, and made sure that he had materials he needed while his financial situation got resolved, and he finished the semester successfully. My last story is one that I'll tell on myself. You know, we care very much about the graduation rates and getting people to finish on time, and so off time, I'm with my husband, we go into the movie theater, we're going to see a movie on the big screen, and behind the popcorn counter, because I love popcorn, behind the counter is a person who says, "Oh, President Shaft." And I said, "You're a student?" "Yes, I am." I said, "Great. Tell me your first name." Told me her first name. And I said, "When do you plan to graduate?" And she said, "Well, I should graduate next semester, but I like it so much, I'm going to change my major." And I about leaped across the counter and I said, no, don't do that. You know, and I started to go into a counseling mode and advising her. And I said, we're here for you for a master's degree. We're here for you for postdoctoral. I'm not telling you to leave, but I'm telling you to graduate. So, but we're all of us, it is a cultural change in each of your institutions if you've not achieved this already. Whether it's the groundskeepers or it's the president, doesn't matter. We're all out to help students succeed at the University of South Florida. And it doesn't matter, you know, it used to be you go to a class, and some of you might remember this in your days, wherever you went to your undergraduate school, where people would say, look to your left, look to your right, you're not going to see the person next to you, perhaps, you know. And that was what we call sorting, S-O-R-T-I-N-G. And now we're changing this around. Now we're here to support those that are admitted to the university. It's not sorting them out. It's supporting them so they can be successful. So we're, as I said earlier, very proud of what we've been able to accomplish. We're never done with our journey, never done with our journey. But by increasing our retention rate to 90% and increasing the 6-year graduation rate up to over 70% and eliminating the achievement gap by race, ethnicity, and socioeconomic status really is unheard of across the country. It really is, by eliminating that gap. But we are here for each and every student. And it is about the data, it is about the right structures, and it is about the systems in place. But it's also, the students know that we care, and we mentor them, and we work really hard. So I just hope that all of you that are here come out with what will work for you. What's worked for us may not work at your institution, but it's all about us learning from each other, taking the best practices, making the adjustments so that it fits the culture and personality of your own institutions, and then making a difference for all of our students. Thank you very, very much for being here. I'm so proud to have this first conference held within the Tampa Bay region, and I know that wherever the next conference is, we'll be there too to learn from you, as we hope that you'll learn from all of us in the room. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Genschaft. At this time, I'd like to welcome Dr. Sally Johnstone, President of the National Center for Higher Education Management Systems, along with several other Chief Academic Officers, to come on stage. Dr. Johnstone.
Thank you, Paul. Oh, good afternoon, and it is afternoon, but just barely. I want to thank President Genschaft for hosting all of us here and her remarkable staff, including the student ambassadors in their smart green coats who have been helping us all do what we need to do and in the right places. In addition to being the president of NCHEMS, National Center for Higher Education Management Systems, I'm also serving as the executive director of a brand new foundation that's called the Foundation for Student Success. And it was founded in 2016. And the first project of our Foundation for Student Success really focuses on how you begin to change the culture of a campus. I'm going to introduce our panelists in just a second, but on the table there's a little piece of paper that looks like this, two-sided, and it tells you some of the details of the Foundation for Student Success, who our initial awardees are, but in addition to that, who our board is. And I would recommend you take a look at those board members. It's an interesting collection of people, all of whom are very knowledgeable about how higher ed works and sometimes how it doesn't work. The board of this new foundation, that's very small and again quite new, decided that they wanted to try and use the small amount of resources they had to have the largest impact on the success rates in colleges and universities of Black, Latino, and American Indian students. And there's a frame around the why of that, but it also involves the overall reality that all students should and can be successful with regard to what their goals are and how they got going. So we began this project a little over a year ago by finding campuses using the back office analytics that NCHEMS has that, that had been more successful in terms of their students and graduation rates, etc., than their initial input variables would have predicted. So all of the institutions that we ran through our analytics had at least 25% of their population Black, Hispanic, and or American Indian. And out the end of this popped a set of institutions, and my colleagues who are sitting over here, Sarah Torres and Marianne Boki, and I then interviewed people on these campuses to figure out if this change and increase in student success was due to just some administrative shifts, like raising their admissions criteria, or whether it really reflected campus change, the culture changing on the campus. And we identified 7 institutions that not only had demonstrated this culture change, by the way, that doesn't happen overnight, usually a 10 or 8-year period of time, but the net result was the incredible benefit to the students. The provosts of 4 of those institutions are joining me this afternoon, and we're going to examine some of the things that they've done and, frankly, probably some of the things they've learned from their mentor institutions. So we selected mentor institutions and then matched them with 3 each of mentee institutions that were matched on one set of variables. We've now refined that because we've learned a lot more since we began. But let me just very briefly introduce each of these individuals. The first of our provosts is Jeff Chase, who is the provost at California State University, Channel Islands. And they are the newest campus in the Cal State system, and they currently enroll about 7,000 students, about 50% of whom are Latino. Now, Jeff has had a varied career at Ohio Wesleyan, San Diego State University. He even spent time as an accreditor in the Western Association of Schools and Colleges. And he was also a Fulbright scholar in Finland during his varied career, but he now finds himself at Channel Islands, which is a very exciting place to be, and he'll share some of that journey. Sitting next to Jeff is John Gunkel, and John is the Vice Chancellor for Academic Programs and Strategic Partnerships. And John is in that role at Rutgers University, Newark. Now, Rutgers University, Newark is not in the Big Ten. It has no Division I sports. It is an urban institution, and they enroll about 12,000 students, and very close to 40% of whom are Black or Latino. Now, John is a philosopher by training, and he says inclination, but he served in many different academic and administrative roles, which puts him in a very strong place to understand how that culture change can actually occur. Sitting next to John is, I have to go back a page, is Ed Bonahue, who is the Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs at Santa Fe College here in Florida. Santa Fe is a community college. They have about 22,000 students, and about 40% of their students are in our target population. Now, Ed has been at Santa Fe for about 20 years, started as a professor in the humanities and moved into international programs. He's also a Fulbright scholar in Germany. Now, if you remember from George Koo's conversation this morning on high-impact practices, serving as a Fulbright scholar would be one of those high-impact practices, even though each of these individuals did this after they had completed their formal education. Look where they are now, sitting on a stage in front of you. Finally, Ralph Wilcox, who is the Provost and Executive Vice President here at the University of South Florida. Now here they enroll, as you just heard, about 50,000 students, and about 27% of their students are Black or Latino. Ralph was a first-generation college student, and he earned his degrees from 3 different institutions. I'm going to let the sound people deal with that one, but from 3 different institutions in 3 different countries. So he really understands what it means to face some of the challenges that the students that we're trying to think about have faced. Now, I'm going to ask each of these individuals very briefly to give us some insight on their journey that resulted in the change of the culture on their campus that reflected more what we just heard in terms of a campus that cares not about sorting students, but about assuring the success of any student that comes to campus. So let's start.
Sure, I'd be glad to start. Can you hear me? Is my mic on? It is, okay, good. So I've only been at Channel Islands for about 8 months now. But it's a very new university. As Sally said, it was founded in 2002. 2002, there were 13 faculty members. Today, there are 150 tenure-track faculty members. Today, there are 250 lecturers. What's been interesting over the trajectory of the 15 years that the university has been in existence is how the student population has changed. We are situated halfway, more or less halfway between Los Angeles and Santa Barbara in Ventura County. We're the only Cal State in that county. It was set up to serve that county, and all of the Cal States have regional areas that they serve. What's been really exciting to watch is over those 12 years how our student population has become increasingly Latino, and we're now we have 50, as Sally said, 50% of our students are Latino, but 60% of our freshman class this year were Latino. So that's likely to go up over time. We've also managed to increase our graduation rates, and I can say more about that. And we still have a lot of work to do. And we're just like Rutgers because we don't have any Division I sports. So.
John?
Great, thank you, Sally. So Rutgers University Newark has been serving first-generation students for a very long time. It's about 100 years old, and a kind of reflection of that is for many of those years, our main instructional building was the former Ballantine Brewery that we were able to get kind of on the cheap and repurpose. But several years ago, we had a new chancellor who came. Chancellor Nancy Cantor came. and at the same time that we were embarking on a new strategic planning process. And our strategic plan, there are a lot of ways universities do that. We asked one question: what does the country expect of higher education today? And we really sat and we started thinking about it from our sort of distinctive perspective. We've been the most diverse PhD granting institution since people have been counting those sorts of things. We have no ethnic majority. We have no religious majority, for that matter, either. And so we started thinking of the university as being a potential model for higher education in the 21st century, responding to what William Fry, for example, calls a diversity explosion. We're not unique in that. I think that all three of the institutions in the Florida Consortium also are like that. But that was sort of our planning, perspective. And we walked through a very complicated plan, and we started thinking that what we needed to do was not add this initiative or put on this program or that program. We really needed to rethink what the university would be like in order to be able to meet the demands we thought higher education would be. So, for example, and we can talk more about some of the specific things later, but for example, first-generation students are often approached from a deficit perspective. That first-generation students have challenges, and somehow or another institutions need to help them overcome those challenges. Well, what if we redesigned a university? We know that many first-generation students come in with, very high in terms of a lot of the attributes that Dr. Koo was talking about this morning. What if we redesigned the university such that we could actually engage the students in those areas, and those what could look at for a deficit from some perspectives could really be a strength and could really enable them to learn and to be able to move on to their careers afterwards. So the question is, how do we have to change the university in order to serve these students? And that's what we've been pursuing for the last number of years.
Thank you. Ed?
It's great to visit with you all from Gainesville. Yes, we are at Santa Fe College here in Florida, Gainesville, not Santa Fe, New Mexico. When I was a department chair, I used to occasionally field a call saying, well, I live in Albuquerque, but I wouldn't mind commuting. This commute is a little further than they thought. Santa Fe is a community college, one of the 28 community colleges in Florida, but like most of the community colleges, we also offer baccalaureate programs in some strategically selected areas. But as a community college, we have all of the challenges and the privileges of any community college in the country. We're an open access institution. About half of our students are Pell or Pell eligible. Over half of our students are part-time. Enrollment management is always a challenge, and our enrollment runs counter-cyclical to the economy. And as a community college, although student success has always been part of the conversation on campus because we're a teaching institution, I would say that it was really with the economic downturn that began in 2008 and which hit us in Florida here like a ton of bricks. The conversation about student completion and student success took on genuine urgency and really transformed the conversation on campus because we were seeing the realities of people thrown out of work who are coming back into an open access institution. As President Genshaft said, the 40-year-old could be displaced worker, could be military veteran. And the student success programming that we've undertaken since then has really involved a kind of intentional resource allocation that places resources in areas where they will serve student success for all students, especially for underserved populations. But that approach to student success has really led us to doing some innovative things, not only in student affairs, but linking student affairs with academic affairs and instruction, which we'll talk about, I hope, in a few minutes.
Yeah. Ralph?
Well, good afternoon. My name is Ralph Wilkins, Provost at the University of South Florida, and I would say at the outset that it's altogether appropriate that I'm sitting next to the Provost from Santa Fe College and State College. The reason I say that is because while much of our conversation, I'm sure, this afternoon will focus on first-time in college students, freshmen, traditional path students, half of our undergraduate students actually come to us from our state college partners. We have a 2+2 grad path program, articulation program, with 8 of our state college partners within Florida, and Santa Fe, I'm pleased to say, is one of those partners. But let me tell you a little more about the University of South Florida, and you've heard from President Genshaft and my colleague Paul Dosell. We're a young, large, metropolitan research university. That's how we tell our story. We're a little different to the other 3 institutions represented up here, and it's that diversity of institutions that I think brings tremendous strength to the Foundation for Student Success initiative, because we learn from one another's different experiences. I mentioned that we're a research university because for a university that is singularly focused on student success, the experience tends to be a little different. We are challenged to lift our research portfolio at the university, to lift our student success profile at the university, and as a metropolitan institution, to engage in mutually beneficial ways with our community. Now, for some, those may seem as mutually exclusive goals. For us, absolutely not. So when we speak of the importance of high-impact practices through internships, through undergraduate research opportunities, through education abroad, through service learning, that we've now integrated into the general education program that all students will pursue at the University of South Florida, you start to see how we've turned a challenge into a remarkable opportunity for our students and for the communities we serve. So again, a doctoral granting, highest research activity institution that's bringing in well over $500 million a year in research funding allows us to utilize and deploy our research acumen to help solve some of the challenges we face. So that multifunctional care team that receives the case-by-case referral that is yielded from our data analytics, predictive analytics platform has been incredibly successful in driving us over that hump. And as I say to Dr. Dosell, there's nothing stopping us now. 71% 6-year graduation rate, 60% 4-year graduation rate. We're just going to keep charging forward, and he's ready, and the whole USF team has bought into this and understands that now that we know who those students are and what they need, it's on us to provide them the requisite support.
And to create, I love the notion of the care teams, multidisciplinary and multifunctional. Are there others that are using data in different ways on your campuses to try and pull things together that you'd like to comment on? Well, in that case, we'll just move right along here. I'm trying to watch the time so we get you to your next sessions. I'd like to ask each of you to take just a few minutes and do 2 things. Number 1, would you help identify what the unique roles of the Chief Academic Officer or Provost is in starting and leading, and I would suggest following also, in these campus culture change environments, and any wrap-up thoughts you have that you'd like to share with people about the journey you've been on. And Ed, I'm going to start with you.
Sure. I feel like one of the things I do as Chief Academic Officer is be sure that the conversation about student success is shared. As I mentioned earlier, I think historically faculty have been preoccupied with course outcomes, or if you teach in a program outcomes. But I think that the philosophy of success really requires that we share more data with faculty, especially faculty teaching gateway classes where students are most likely to stop out, and then ask those faculty, are we satisfied with this? What is it that we think we can improve? What is it that we think we can change? Because the consequences are too weighty to just allow us to continue with. And again, at Santa Fe, for a community college, we have an exceptionally high IPEDS completion rate of 65%. But that means that 35 students out of every 100 are not going to be making their way through, and that's not acceptable to any of us. I think that the thing that the Chief Academic Officer does is then have to kind of be out front, talk about it, ask others to talk about it, hold deans and department chairs accountable for also continuing the conversations at the department level. It's also not lost on me, we happen to be 4 white guys up here.
Yeah, I know.
All right?
I
And
noticed
so,
that.
I know.
yeah. and
Sorry about that.
Right. So but I mean, I think it goes to the point of creating a climate on campus where everyone feels comfortable and safe having conversations that may not always be comfortable. If one of the things we need to talk about is performance gaps, or one of the things we need to talk about is persistent inequities on campus, the Chief Academic Officer has a role to play. And if you're a white guy, guess what? You still need to be out front. Don't be leaving it to your colleagues. You need to be engaged with that conversation and set the model yourself. I think those are all some of the things that the Chief Academic Officers do.
And having spent 5 years as a provost at a public comprehensive, it's true for white women as well, you know. Ralph?
Oh, mine's the easy job. When you've got a team around you, as I do, it's a matter of joining the dots, empowering them, because they're an awful lot smarter than I am. And I love what Jeff said earlier, and that was empower them and allow them to try new things, regardless of whether they fail or succeed. And we've had our failures along the way. I tend to forget them, can't remember what they are. They wake me up occasionally at night. But empowering our team, pointing the direction, getting out there and leading, absolutely. But there's another piece, and that is leading the celebration at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Nice.
And we really, we try to do that. We try to do that on an individual basis, but more often on a collective basis at the University of South Florida, because they've earned it.
John?
So, Rutgers is unusual in a number of ways that I've mentioned before, but one of them is that we actually have a very unusual structure in academic affairs. I am not the provost. We do have a provost. We separate the organizational responsibilities that most provosts have from the academic function. In terms of particularly working with faculty. So we do have a provost, and were he here, he would have diversified the panel a bit by adding a black man to the panel, but he is, and that's one of the things that he's actually really done. That's really, I think, helped move our institution forward. He, before he came into the provost's office, he was running what's called the PhD project, which is working on diversifying faculty, particularly in business. I see the business school dean nodding in recognition. So he has really done a lot of that work with the deans in terms of being able to diversify the next generation of our faculty to work with the next generation of our students. And in that respect, he's been utterly invaluable in engaging them generally around a number of pedagogical issues, and mostly just kind of maintaining a conversation as a lot of the organizational and engaging the faculty and the deans as the organization is changing in other ways as well.
Thanks. Jeff?
So I would echo a lot of this, but in particular, I think, the notion of surrounding yourself with a great team and trusting them is something that a chief academic officer has to do, anybody in a leadership position has to do. And the university is only as strong as the people there. It's not one person, even though the person may have a key role at some place, in some way. The other thing I would say is that I think as the chief academic officer, it's critically important that we keep emphasizing, and I do this with faculty, I also do it across the university, that student success is not just a graduation rate. It is also about having evidence that the student who walks across the stage has the skill set, the mindset, the knowledge, the habits of mind, that we are confident that she'll be successful. So I think it's really incumbent upon us on the academic side of the house to keep moving this conversation about student success forward around graduation rates and the achievement gap. But I also think we need to couple it with, so how do we know these students are really ready? How do they, and this goes back to some of the comments George Koo was making this morning, how do they know? Because when you look at the national survey data on what employers say about graduates, it's not particularly encouraging. So how do we come up with the evidence to say, yes, the student from, Santa Fe, from University of South Florida, from University of Texas, University of Vermont, Oberlin, they graduate, and we can point to the information that lets you know that student is ready to go.
And we've got an answer for that, but that's an entirely different project. So we won't go there. But in terms of the Foundation for Student Success, one of the things that we're doing with our NCHEMS staff is we lurk on all of the conversations that our mentor institutions, and it's not always just one person from each of those, and the people from our mentee institutions that are working with those individuals who have shown greater success. So we lurk and we listen and we try to draw out the lessons. And I would suggest that where we've gotten thus far, after about a year of this, is we're seeing some real levers for change. And remember, our goal is to find the evidence and help other campuses begin that process of real culture change. Not just let's make a few changes here and there, but really changing the culture of the campus, which I think you've heard from all four of these individuals in terms of what's happened. So one of the key ones we know is leadership. And that is not just presidential leadership, it's all of upper level leadership on a campus and including the board. We have to have the board of the college, whatever framework that takes, really supporting this whole concept. And unfortunately, another element to that we're learning the hard way is there needs to be some stability in that leadership. Without the stability, it's tough. Data is critical. It needs to be shared widely and honestly, but in digestible forms. Different communities on campus need to see their data in different ways, and that's a critical part of this. Another element of change is the explicit awareness of the current campus culture, of really understanding what the strengths as well as maybe some of the weaknesses are within the campus so that you can address those very transparently open and honest conversations. Another big one, shift in hiring practices. If all you do is perpetuate everybody looking alike and acting alike and thinking alike, you're not going to see the campus culture change. And one of the lessons we've gotten out of that is, while that is critical and has to be done and can be done, the strategies for doing it may be quite different on campuses that have collective bargaining versus those that do not. It's just a different set of strategies, but not impossible. Another one that I've learned from each of these campuses is the notion of training the whole campus. And I remember when we were at Rutgers, one of the comments that one of John's colleagues made was that it's a real pain because you can't do it just once. You can't train the parking attendants and the people that are emptying the garbage to be fully engaged in the awareness of student success and the roles they can play, and only do that once. You have to do it over and over and over again. Finally, I think one of the greatest things that we've picked up on is something I know John mentioned, and I think Ralph and Ed mentioned it, and I don't remember if Jeff did or not, but changing the conversations and the language that's used on the campus from a deficit perspective to a positive and contributive perspective. So it's not that you're dealing with at-risk students who need extra services. It is the strength that they are bringing to the campus to create a diversity of different ways of thinking and doing things. In April, the Foundation for Student Success will start a series of webinars featuring people like these guys, but also their staffs who look very different from them. And are doing some remarkable work, but we're using as an umbrella theme tough conversations on campus. How you identify them and get them started. And everybody has different approaches or strategies around that. And there's, I think we'll be doing 4 of these, 2 in the spring, 2 in the fall. They are open and available to anyone, and we'll try to let everybody know the specifics on them as soon as we do. But I would welcome all of you to tune in, and please, for now, help me thank these individuals for joining us.